So let's talk a little bit about the different units in this game, Supremacy 1914. There's actually 13 different kinds of units and troops that you use, and they all have different jobs, so to say, different actions. What are they good at and bad at? And people don't really understand this, all of you. And it's important to use the right units for the right things. So let's talk a bit about all of them. 13. We start with the infantry, of course. This is the only unit you get for free, or you recruit them, but they come without you doing anything except building recruitment offices, of course. After you build that, you get infantry. And you can always click on a unit and then click again. You get the information. And the first thing you should actually read is the role, the description. This is pretty good information. I think they nail it for most of the units. So it's very important. So the infantry is actually a defensive weapon. It's a defense role for the infantry. And you can get a lot of information here on the combat statistics. The damage against type versus normal, which is infantry. So an infantry attacks with a strength of 4 against other infantry, but it defends with 5. So it's actually 20% stronger in defense than in offense, the infantry. And this is important to know. Uh, Often, especially in the early parts of the game, you see a bunch of infantry just rushing towards each other. And if they do that, they will end up in war and both will be attacking. And there is a smart way for one of them to really take advantage of this. If you have your armies rushing towards each other and they are about to attack and you both want to attack, you should stop your armies a little time before they engage. You can't stop in just a few seconds before because they will automatically engage and both be attacking, but like 30 minutes before or something. If you stop your infantry, they will be defending because they are standing still, and the other one will be attacking. And as we see, attack is 4, defense is 5. So you automatically have 20% advantage over your attacker. That's a smart thing to know, and it's very good to use this because you will win a lot more fights and you will save a lot more units doing this. So that was the infantry. Now over for the rest of the units. I told you there were 13 in total, so infantry is one, and the other 12 you have to build. So let's check here. I don't have any workshops or factory, but we can still check. So the other 12, 6 of them are land-based, 3 of them are air-based, and 3 are naval. So let's look at them one by one. Land. The armored car. It's the favorite unit of many of you people. And did you know this? Check info. The armored car is a defensive weapon. Most people use it for attacking, but it really comes to its right role if defending. It's fantastic with its speed, so it's good for reconnaissance. It's good for attacking empty provinces. You can really expand quick. But if it's a normal fight between two armies, try to use them to defend and not to attack. And check this versus infantry. It's 6 in attack and 12 in defense, so it's twice the strength in defending with an armored car. And it's the same versus air. For later in the game, when your enemy has airplanes, it's perfect to always have a few armored cars in your troops because if they attack there, the armored cars are very good at defending versus air. So the same example applies for armored cars as for infantry. If you're rushing armored cars against each other, or a combination of armored cars and infantry, Make sure you stop and be a defender. If someone is rushing towards you, towards your city, you can push out your army a bit to just get closer and then stop, and you will be defending. If you have, I checked some battle calculation. If you have 2 armor cars and 10 infantry each, all at 100%, if they are attacking each other, of course it's similar size, so they will all be killed, or just luck will tell who comes out on top. But if you are defending 2 armor cars and 10 infantry, you will only lose as a defender 3 infantry and keep the rest, while the attacker lose everything. And this is crazy, actually. So remember this in the early stages of the game. The armor car is a defense weapon. So what should you do when you want to attack then? Well, here it is. It's a cavalry. This is offensive weapon. It's an offensive role, and it's very, very useful in the early parts of the game before any other tanks or artilleries and stuff are available. Look at this. Combat statistics versus normal. It has 15. Remember, a infantry had 4. This has 15. So it's much better, and it's much better than the armor car to attack. And they are cheaper to build, but of course you need barracks to do this. And it says also here, considerably cheap unit that is mounted on fast horses for early war reconnaissance and skirmishing, making it very effective against infantry or for scouting ahead. So they already put this down. You can read it yourself. So if you want to be very offensive in the beginning, and you want to take a lot of provinces, build cavalry. Build a lot of them, and then you can attack. And people will have very, very hard to defend against this. They have to build armor cars to defend, and fortresses, of course. But if there's no fortresses involved and no armor cars, just infantry, the cavalry is super efficient. It will run over all your opponents. So remember this when you want to go to attack. Artillery, this is a ranged weapon, so we know what it's good for. It can shoot from a distance. So this is not really defense numbers and offense. It's if you engage in direct combat, which you shouldn't. But you should know this, that artillery are not good to defend if they are head on head, so to say, with infantry. So always leave your artillery outside of the battle. Then they can shoot from a range and they will not get attacked. Very important. But if you are active and you have a lot of artillery and you make sure they never get engaged in direct battle, they can be extremely effective. And it's very hard for an enemy to take those out from you if you are active and constantly move them and just take shots every hour when they are allowed. I like artillery myself. So, what's the next we should look at? Tanks. Let's do this quick because they're fairly easy. They are attacking and defending at the same damage limit. 30, this is a normal tank, and of course it's against infantry, and it's also pretty good against buildings. So if you want to crush down a city with infantry in it, use tanks. Very good. And also if you want to defend the city or your troops, use tanks. It's obvious, more or less, actually. So we don't have to look more into that. But tanks are very, very effective, but they cost a lot to build and it takes some time. Heavy tanks, same there. It has all the same roles as a normal tank, but just it's stronger. It's stronger in every way, but it also costs more to build, and it takes longer time to build. But if you can afford it, of course, go up and build heavy tanks. And the last land-based unit is the railroad gun. This is also a ranged attack, so obviously you should keep this one away from the battle. The absolute strength with the railroad gun is the range. It can reach very very far, and attacks with 20, which is I think 2.5 times more than a normal artillery. So they are very effective in that way, but mostly it's because of the range, because you can shoot at things that cannot fire back. So it's very hard to take out a rail gun if it's protected by air, protected by fortress and stuff like that. So they are very efficient psychologically, because your enemy knows they're getting shot at, but they can't do anything about it. So it's very frustrating, and that's of course very fun to frustrate your opponents. So if you are defending, this is most defend, because it take a very slow mover. So if you want to just hold your ground, if you fear someone will attack you, build rail guns, and they will have a lot harder to invade you. Okay, that was the land-based units. Let's go over to the air. Start with the balloon. This is fantastic, and I don't see everybody use this as they should. It's anti-air. That's one. Uh, of course, the big thing about balloons is you widen your sight, so you can see a lot more longer distance, which is good. Information is always good. But what you might not know is the defense value it has against air. Check this. 8. This is very good. Uh, if your enemy has planes, bombers, fighters, and attacks you with this, or plan to attack, if you put a balloon everywhere, you can put 2, 3 balloons in every important troop or city, it will seriously damage your enemy's airplanes. So if you can't afford to build airplanes yourself, fighters for defense, use the balloons. Put the balloons on your ships. That will also protect them against enemy aircraft. If you put like 5, 6 balloons on top of a battleship, it will be very costly for someone to attack it. Uh, so remember this: when aircraft come into play, build balloons and use them as defense. And of course, you get the extra range of sight, which is very, very important as well. And now for the planes. This is important to know. We start with the fighter because it's next in line. And check this. This is a anti-stealth and it's an anti-air. Anti-stealth means it can give you information. If you patrol this over a city, you will see how many troops there are in the city. Even if they're heavy fortresses, they will see that. If you patrol it over water, you will detect all submarines in there, in that area, which is also very good. But most of all, it's anti-air. The fighter defense versus air, that was against other airplanes, bombers and fighters, at 20. And this is where they should be used. If you use them to attack infantry, it has the offense value of 5. Compare this to infantry that had an offense value of 4. A fighter is not, it's just slightly better than an infantry in attacking on the ground. And the fighter should never be used to attack on the ground. Maybe if the enemy has a few artilleries that are unprotected and you have a fighter in the area or a couple of fighters, you can attack and try to take out an artillery if it annoys you, but you should know your fighter will be damaged doing that. And I see people build fighters and then attack infantry on the ground. This is crazy. You're wasting your money so much. The fighter is to protect against other airplanes, and they are very effective against bombers. for instance. It's cheaper to build than a bomber, and in a direct attack between a fighter and the bomber, the fighter always wins. But and they're cheaper and they are also quicker to build, but they should not be used to attack on the ground. Therefore, you have the bomber. That is for, as you hear in the name, it's bomber. It bombs people, cities, and units on the ground. It has 30 in uh, in damage to attack on the ground, and the fighter had 5. So a bomber is 6 times more efficient on the ground to attack. And I don't know why people keep bombers and fighters in the same group to attack. Divide them. Use the bombers to attack and use the fighters to protect your bombers. Because you see on the combat statistics against air, it has 3 in offense and defense, while the fighter had 20. So if the bomber is 6 times more effective to bomb on the ground, the fighter is 6 times more effective than the bomber to defend and attack in the air. So remember this when you're doing air fights. What are your purpose? Are your purpose to bomb the shit out of your opponents? There's no need to build fighters. Then you only need to build bombers. But if your enemy has aircrafts themselves, then you must build fighters to protect your bombers. So divide these, attack with the bomber, defend with the fighter. It's as simple as that, and use the fighter for other missions like detecting submarines and hidden troops in cities. That's a short and basic description of the air fights. And there's a lot more to learn from this, of course, but that will be in another video. And the naval. The light cruiser, that's the first one you can build, and it's extremely fast, which is fantastic. It has short attack range, but it's very good, especially when attacking AI countries, because if you attack them from the shore, they will send out their infantry to chase your cruiser. And if you're active, they will never catch up, of course, because the cruiser is so much quicker. It has 10 everywhere, 10 against everything, and it's also pretty good at defending actually versus air. It has 10. So remember that if you're attacking a cruiser with a fighter, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt the fighter, and the fighter is more expensive to build than a cruiser. So build these. They attack with 10, which is good, and they're quick, so that's good also. But still, it's nothing compared to the battleship. Let's do this. I jump over to the battleship and I end with the submarine. Battleship, we know it takes a long time to build. It also has a range attack. It has a lot bigger range than the cruiser, and it attacks with 4 times the strength as a cruiser. 40 instead of 10. But it actually has worse defense versus air than a cruiser. Cruiser had 10. A battleship has 6. So if there are airplanes in the area, never leave your battleships unattended. Always have some cruisers along with it, maybe some infantry, and what did I say just a few minutes ago? Balloons. Balloons are very good at air defense, so put some balloons on your battleship. This will help defend a lot versus air. So this is now the final unit we talk about, and then this video is done. So the submarine. We all know it's invisible, and its main purpose is to attack other ships. So that's how they are used. And remember also, of course, that they are good for scouting. You can send them to countries far away and check if your enemy is about to prepare to cross the sea against you, stuff like that. So reconnaissance, and patrol and attack ships, but also defend. They defend as well as they attack in when it comes to naval. So if you want to protect your cruisers and the battleships against submarines, not against air because they're useless more or less to defend against air, but they defend well against other submarines. So don't, if you know there's a lot of submarines or you suspect there's a lot of submarines in the area from your enemies, put your own submarines, a bunch of them, under your battleships and under your cruisers. This will of course slow down the cruisers a lot. So in that part of the game, you will have to just accept that the cruisers cannot run around freely anymore because they can easily be taken out by submarines. So then, in the late part, it's time to stack your naval units together. Stack your cruisers with your battleships and put submarines under and infantry and balloons on top to defend against both air and underwater attacks. And with those words, I summarized all the units in a basic matter. Of course, there's a lot more to learn and see about everything, but this is just a basic crash course in the units and how you should use them. Uh, Good luck, everybody, and make sure to kill all your enemies. Bye bye.